We shall now start with the second session. For the technical session 2, implementation of NEP 2020 by school education boards, the session will be chaired by Dr. Yadav, Chairman, Board of School Education, Haryana. And for the speakers, we have Manoj Srivastava, PE, CBSE, Dr.SonaAhuja, Dean, Dayalbagh Educational Institute, Agra, Dr. ShamimChowdhury from Cambridge International, a global qualification provider and part of University of Cambridge, United Kingdom, Sri Mahesh Balakrishnan, International Baccalaureate, and Professor V.K. Goel, Secretary, CGBSE, Raipur. I request our esteemed dignitaries to please come on the dais.
A very good evening to all. We begin with the second technical session of this conference. It's basically on implementation of NEP 2020 by school education boards. And we have distinguished speakers, 4 speakers are there. And now we are left out with only 50 minutes. So we need to work on to this also as to the time limit which we need to restrict ourselves. Since this session is about NEP implementation and there has been a lot of talk about it. There was a talk about shifting from rote learning to competency-based education. Now, what I understand basically is we need to be clear about what is rote learning. Is it required? And if it was of no use, then why is it going on for such a long time? See, when we come to rote learning enhances or rather helps us in memorizing certain facts. अब क्लास में टीचर्स बोलते हैं लर्न करना है, लेकिन बच्चे उसको याद करके लेते, दे मेमोराइज. टीचर राइट्स write and learn. Actually, that is a wrong way of giving a homework. The terminology should be write and memorize. Learning happens when there is a change in behavior. That exactly is learning. कई बार कहते हैं पढ़ लिख गया पर गुणा नहीं, गुणों का समावेश नहीं हुआ. Anything leads to change in behavior or improvement in behavior is learning. So our focus should be on learning. Now when we say competency based questions, now questions, again there are many of us who need to deliberate on what is competency based questions. When we generally try to understand or ask about or assess the knowledge, questions which are what, where, when, simple, they test your knowledge, information you have gathered, straightway question. But somebody asks you why, how, interpret, analyze, draw conclusion, these are competency based questions. They test your abilities. So this is what we need to change as per the NEP 2020. Then there is a lot of talk about life skills. Now when we talk of life skills, it's very simple, that they help us in dealing or acquiring those abilities which will help us in life. Now WHO has basically identified 10 life skills. And we categorize them in 3 categories. One, we talk of thinking skills. Self-awareness is one skill. Unfortunately, क्या हमारे बच्चे, हम सब अपने बारे में कम जानते हैं, दूसरों के बारे में, देखो सबने बोल दिया, ज़्यादा जानते हैं. तो basically, self-awareness is more important, not others' awareness is not important. We have to be self-wise rather than otherwise. Then critical thinking, our ability to analyze and process information. This will happen when there are competency based questions. Critical thinking, out of the box thinking. वो कहते हैं ना, हम लोग बहुत चैंपियंस हैं नकल करने में. So that has to be done away with. Then decision making and problem solving. These are some of the life skills. Again, these life skills as per NEP 2020 will be developed when we are basically asked those type of competency based questions. Now, how will we develop? The most important aspect, now there is a lot of talk about teachers, कि nobody wants to come to this profession, that this is not a choice profession, because it does not command that respect in society which other profession commands. But still, that Guru Shishya Parampara, which is being spoken in NEP, if it returns, then definitely lot is going to change. So what is important is that to develop teachers, we earn respect in society when we are competent. Now most of the B.Ed which is being done in the country, it is without attending the class, it is non-attending. And the problem is that with the privatization of education, most of things have become commercial. So we need to look into, NEP needs to address this problem. 50 hours of continuous professional development of teachers is very essential. So this is another thing, when the teacher will be well developed, will be knowledgeable, then real justice in the classroom will be done. We had been talking of learning objectives before, but now we have shifted from learning objective to learning outcome. It is not what I want to learn, but what I will be able to do after learning this, which competencies I will be able to acquire. This is what NEP 2020 wants to address and tell us. So with this, I understand we'll be all deliberating on this technical session, I invite Dr. Manoj Srivastava from CBSE to come and give his presentations.
Good afternoon. I presume that 50-minute time given to us is equally distributed, or the speaker who just spoken about NEP, there will be a concession, because normally in board we give concession of times.
It was divided by 4, now it is divided by 5. Because I have already spoken. Yeah, thank you.
Believe you me, I am here since morning and I was thinking as to how do I sum up my entire presentation in 10 to 15 minutes, and so that is the way it should be. I would quickly say one thing, that in government, if something has been decided, it has been decided, and that thing becomes undiscussable now. So there is an NEP in place, and there is NCFSE in place, and there is NCFS in place. All that we need to do is to find way out to implement it. In CBSE, we take every new embarkment as a challenge, and we work very hard. We try to create a system, but the problem is our size is a little big. We deal with roughly around 3 crore children, and then 35 states and union territories, multiple languages, roughly around 16 lakh teachers, 30,000 odd schools. So you can imagine that small change or a small intervention has a wider ramifications. So we need to do things in a very, very well-crafted manner. And many of board must be thinking that let CBSE come out with some strategy or some action plan or some roadmap, so that we would be replicating it with minor adjustment here and there, and you would also be there with us. But we are also taking time, because we are doing a lot of consultation process. This is what it looked like. If you see the Kerry Packer revolution, what looked in an orthodox cricket setting 1977, nobody was willing to give any space to Kerry Packer. And he came out with a wide range of crazy ideas. He started with some 51 leading cricketer, and he hosted not test match, because that word was not granted to him. And then he coined another words, and he says super test. The ground was not given to the business tycoon. He used the rugby playground to come up and to have something which has completely changed the entire dynamics of cricketing as a game. If you see what used to be a 5 days match converted to a 1 day match, a night cricket over to day cricket, and color clothing was, white was replaced by colored clothing, and then white side screen was turned to black, and many other things. And now we have, we also replicated. We had an ICL which was launched by Zee Telefilms. There was some problem, because initially they were not recognized, and then BCCI came up with IPL, and today we have 50 overs match and 20 overs match and whatnot, and every player has an opportunity to show their talent, and many other ancillary units are also cropping up. So we must initiate. There would be problem. Unless you initiate, you will not get to know where are the initial teething problem, what adjustment we need to do in the course of embarkment. And there is also something called learning from each other, so that we avoid reinventing the wheel. So this is in the background in which I thought we will initiate. So in CBSE, we are not discussing as to what is not there in NCFSE or what is not there in NEP. What is there has been given to us as a mandate, and we are working very hard on it. And what we have done over the last couple of years, I am going to showcase in another 5 minutes. If you go to the ministry website, it reads this. It requires initiatives and actions taken by multiple bodies in a synchronized and systematic manner. Policy provides different timelines. Implementation is being led by various bodies, because we know that there are state board, there are ICSE, there are NIS, there are CBSE. So it has to take its own time. And government is very clear. That is how NEP was given in public domain. NCF FS was put out in public domain. NCF FE was put out in SE was put out in public domain to invite wider consultation, and then the government settled with something like this. And largely, it has 5 things: learner-centric education, digital learning, industry-institute collaboration, academic research and internationalization, and Indian knowledge system. Now, what we did, we could realize that principle is a critical mass in the entire supply chain. So we thought we'll focus on principle. Every principle is being followed, being pursued for an extensive training program on a regular basis. And all gamut of NEP is being covered. I would take just 5 seconds for each slide. These are the initiation that we have done. We have started, if you have read NEP, it talks about key stage assessment. Key stage assessment for 358. We have started SAFAL, and we are implementing it. We have already done in 1800 odd schools, and we have shared the outcome. And you will be happy to know that the outcome of SAFAL, the outcome of ASAR report, and the NAS finding, they are on sync. They all collectively go to indicate that in country, the language and mathematical ability is actually declining. So there is something that needs to be immediately attended by all the boards. We have also started working on HPC, and it is based on the prototype which was provided by the NCERT. Now, you know that the different groups have been formed. Some of the assessment are being shifted to school education. How do you ensure a standardization and quality parity between an internal assessment happening in a school or happening in a board-assessed scenario? So we have to bring a system, an SOP or some kind of a protocol or mechanism or sensitization that internal assessment also stands to the scrutiny. It gets accepted. You cannot have a school doing in isolation and giving marks whichever way they wish like to, and then comparing it with the board conducted examination. So there has to be a system. We are consulting with all the principals and nodal supervisors, other boards also, to frame a rule about it. Then NEP talks about multilingual education. We have written to all schools because they are located in different states. We want to encourage multilingualism in the states, and therefore the focus is also on teaching using mother language as the medium of instruction. So we have told them to somehow figure it out how in their school they can encourage the curriculum transaction into the local languages, and that has not been made mandatory. NCFSE also talks about open textbook. We have formed a committee. Committee is looking at as to how much of it can be given as a part of formative assessment to the school. And there is a work which is going on. And maybe another 2-3 months we'll come with a formal operational document. Initiating research through Center of Excellence. We have 17 Center of Excellence in this country. Why we have done it? Because each year, whatever result we declare, subject-wise analysis we do, and we do it in sync with various other reports, so that there is a focus attention for a subject, for a teacher, for a school, for an area, and that is also happening. In SAFAL, if you know the key stage assessment has got to be a very, very non-intimidating assessment exercise. It doesn't deal with a single kid, to give his or her ranking or performance. It is an idea to figure out how the child is doing within the ecosystem of a school. And then that is how we have decided a proficiency band, a performance band. We call it below basic, basic and proficient and advanced. And the explanation is also given that in case you perform, let us say if you are being tested for grade 8 and you are performing only at grade 6, then you are below basic. So these are the overall description we have given, and schools have also been given feedback that your kids are lying in this area, and therefore you make improvement. If you see this table, you could figure out below basic and basic, grade 5 language mein dekhiye, it is 43%. So this is an area of intervention. Both management, and that is why I have used the word influence. Every teacher, every principal, every board officials have to somehow influence the ecosystem to look, this is a very clear, vivid area of direct intervention, 43%. Grade 5 mathematics, 17%. If you add basic into it, it becomes around 52%. So which is an area of concern. We are scaling it up. We started with 18,000 school. We did pilot. In CBSE, what we are trying to do, we are not doing anything in a hurry. We first do pilot, get a feedback, we fine tune it, again make those finer changes so that it becomes more acceptable and pragmatic. This is the grid we have adopted. Every NCF-SE actionable point has been converted into what it is actually aiming for and what is the action plan in place. If there is a pilot needed, then what is the timeline for the pilot, and then the second stage of scrutiny or review at the senior level, and then absolute rollout. This we have done for, let us say, introduction of compulsory third language. For each of the actionable point, we have made this. I am not discussing this. This presentation will be available with the BOSSE. Coordination with states. Compulsory third language. I was talking to the officers from the Punjab board that there is a component of third language. So, and CBSE has to rely on the textbook to be prepared either by the State Bureau or the SCRT. Therefore, we are writing to all of them because the whole idea is to give popularity and weightage to the local regional language, and that can only happen when SCRT helps us. Now, implications, I think Nidhi has discussed. Now, what we have done, we are not discussing implications. We have started that we have a subject basket. Now, these subjects should be converted into groups. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. So, the subjects which are fitting into the existing group so that the job is minimum. And we have made a committee and we are trying to push the subject. We have roughly around 186 subjects. Each subject is being pushed to the respective group so that we are ready with where we have already reached. Now, we have made changes. When you do a mega intervention like a policy, educational policy document, you have to have a structural reforms because it has a kind of a domino effect. When you change curriculum, you change book. When you change book, you change your assessment framework. You also change the question paper typology, etc., etc. So somebody in the morning was talking about 2 board examination. Let us understand one thing very clearly, that for the first, the board examination to happen twice in a year, you have to have books in your hand. What are you going to test it for, child? So the book becomes first priority. All other things are simultaneously happening. Experiential learning, art and sport integrations, competency-based learning. Competency-based is something which is very new to the ecosystem. Teachers are not trained. So what we have done, we have engaged with Ajim Premji University. We are also reaching out to IGNOU to develop specific courses which could, equip our teachers to do a real good job in terms of item selections, item moderation, translation and whatnot, so that the competency-based education is addressed in its truest sense. Structural changes, all of you must be knowing that there is something called Bal Vatika that has come in. So we have written to all affiliated schools that you have to make a provision for Bal Vatika. So these structural changes have also been done, and schools have been given certain concessions also. Massive training is going on. If you have seen the CBSE website, anything that I am talking here is in public domain. It is all given on the website. आप देखिए वो सारे लिंक वहाँ मौजूद हैं. आप सारे लिंक को डाउनलोड करिए, सारे सर्कुलर्स हैं, आप उसको जैसे इस्तेमाल करिए, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली मैं भी चाय पे भी बात कर रहा था, हमारा एक ही फोकस है हम सबका Our focus is on child, our focus is on a quality education, and that is what the Government of India expects from all of us. So everything is in public domain, and please feel free to reach out to us. School culture and process. We have also tried to reach out to the parents. School management. Vocational education. This graph would show that there is a consistent growth from 2019 to 2024. If you see the growth both in secondary level and senior secondary level really consistent. And we have also added more and more skill-oriented subject, which is based on the market demand. And the certification comes from, if you see the study material comes from, prepared by NCERT and PSI. And wherever it is not available, CBSE develops its material and uploads on the website. So school cannot tell that books are not available. All that we develop, do a lot of curation, review, and then we push it to the public domain. And the certification is happening with CBSE and National Stock Exchange, CBSE and NCH, MCT, and various other organizations. So it has a lot of employability value and preservation value from that sense. We have developed skill modules because the NEP talks about a greater vocationalization even at the middle stage, so that there is a sense relating to the dignity of labor and stuff like this. So skill module, skill subject, internship, industry relationship. We are entering into a lot of alliances with the industries. Skill Yatra, Exposure Visit, Skill Hubs Initiative. आपको इसमें से आप जितने भी बोर्ड बैठे हैं, मैं आप सबको निवेदन करना चाहूँगा, आपको इस बारे में कोई भी इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए, प्लीज़ रीच आउट टू अस, वी विल प्रोवाइड यू. ये हमारे सब्जेक्ट्स हैं 10th एंड 12th में. आप ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टेड होंगे 2 बोर्ड एग्जामिनेशन के बारे में, वो उसकी चर्चा हम कर चुके हैं. द एंटायर इशू इज़ अंडर अ डिटेल्ड एग्जामिनेशन बिकॉज we are not in a situation, we would actually, all of us would, as a board officers, we would aim for a situation where you don't have to create a center of examination. Why? The same school can conduct the examination, but there is an element of suspicion or some kind of a foul play. So you need to create a center. Why do we need an invigilation? Why? If I am disciplined, I have maintained my some degree of probity and integrity, why should I need an invigilation? So unless that happens, the existing system should continue. Center notification, the roll number generation, the subject change cases, the transfer from child to here and there, all these practical difficulty will be there. So mere announcement of 2 board examination has a lot of things to happen at the back end. So board is looking at all possible changes from curriculum, desperately awaiting for the NCERT to release its books. They are working very hard on it, which Professor NCERT has spoken this morning. And then what is the minimum timeline? Because generally we find around 45 to 55 days it takes for an examination results to be processed and to be declared. So when you conduct one more examination, where are the areas where we can do some process re-engineering to cut time? So all that is happening, and this cannot be piloted. You can do pilot for, let us say, training or for a subject, but examination cannot be done on a pilot basis. Board examination, obviously. So it has to be very well thought out strategy, and we are working on it, especially internal assessment, and then what should be the weightage of internal assessment, and if internal assessment has to happen, whether the school from the neighboring city or the same city will go. So all these things are being examined. And we will surely come, I'm a part of that committee, so we'll come with some action plan and we will share with all of you. Languages, we are reaching out to SCRT, and we have, as far as institutional changes are concerned, we have also implemented the school quality framework, which is a recommendation of NEP, and for that also a lot of capacity building is going on. I mentioned training, I mentioned capacity building for competency assessment, I mentioned for institutional preparedness to deal with these changes. So on all areas we're working, and maybe in 3 to 4 month time, as far as CBSE is concerned, everything, the blueprint for every action plan that we have post NEP and NCFSE, we will have in place. Thank you so much, and I have nothing more to add. We have discussed enough in NEP and NCFSE since the morning. And I have to express my thanks and gratitude to MC Sharma sir, the former controller of examination and the COBSE General Secretary, Asano ma'am, the chairperson, the Nagaland board, Kuldeep ji. Kuldeep ji has been, now we are looking tired, but Kuldeep ji kabhi tired dikhte nahi hai, wo मैं ये देख रहा हूँ. So there's a lot to learn from you, Kuldeep ji, and many other eminent speakers, and especially the board of open schooling and skill education, to have taken this initiative despite being a very new in the ecosystem, and then inviting us to a lovely place like this. It's not a small state, it's a great state, great people, great hospitality, and we are having a nice time. Thank you so much.